Hello, everybody, and happy World Narcolepsy Day! Yay! Happy World Narcolepsy Day 2025. We're so glad you're here for this amazing discussion today with a great group on such an important topic, not living with narcolepsy, well, a little bit, but also traveling with narcolepsy. And huge thanks to Anna Marr, one of our guests today, for requesting this topic. And we're just so excited to dive in and discuss and also learn from you. So let me get this into slideshow. All right. Farah.
All right. Hi, everyone. Happy World Narcolepsy Day. So today we're talking about traveling with narcolepsy. If you're joining live, please share the state or country where you're watching from. We're excited to see where everyone is joining us from today. Be sure to like and comment, share the video so that we can continue to raise awareness and keep welcoming new people into our community. I'd like to encourage everyone to ask questions, share your comments and your thoughts throughout the broadcast. We will be pausing periodically to address them. Today's broadcast is being recorded live and will be available for viewing in the next day or two. Please note that this is a broadcast that's a public video, so the comments do share, or sorry, do stay with the video. So please don't share anything in the comments or the live chat that you wouldn't want to share publicly. A quick reminder to everyone tuning in today that the presentation and discussion is intended for educational and awareness purposes, so it's not medical advice. We want to empower everyone with the information, but if anything that we discuss today sparks questions for you about your own medical management, please make sure that you bring those questions to your healthcare team or your sleep specialist. And finally, after the broadcast, we are going to be building a toolkit that will be packed with lots of information, resources, tips about traveling with narcolepsy. So please stay tuned for that. And I'm going to turn it back to you, Julie.
Thank you, Farah. And so, what a perfect topic to be talking about on World Narcolepsy Day with such an international community. And so, I'm excited to introduce you to our special guest today. And I'm going to stop sharing actually so that we can see each other. Lauren, will you introduce yourself for a few seconds and share your diagnosis, where you're at, and your favorite place that you have traveled to, and some place you'd like to go to in the future.
Sure. Hi, I'm Lauren. I am in Brooklyn, New York, and I was diagnosed with narcolepsy in 2019 after about 14 years of misdiagnosis. Um, so where am I now? I said I was in Brooklyn. My favorite place I've traveled. So my favorite place that I've traveled has to be Costa Rica. And then my bucket list trip, I think you two may have already done, but Japan. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Anna.
Hi, my name is Anna Marr. I have type 1 narcolepsy. I was diagnosed it was either the end of 2012 or early 2013. I can't remember. And let's see, I'm in Los Angeles, down the street from Julie. And my favorite place that I've traveled to, you nailed it, Lauren, it's Japan, specifically Kyoto. Um, and honestly, what I'm really desiring right now is I'd really like to go somewhere in the European countryside where it's just like roaming hills and wildflowers. And I don't know where that is, but that is sort of like all that I want right now.
Have you been watching like The Sound of Music or something? Or
That is, I don't really have a bucket list in life, but the one thing that's always been on my bucket list is to go somewhere and just spin around like
The
Maria.
hills are alive. Yeah.
I have done the Sound of Music tour before, and it was great.
I
They
would
have a
want
tour.
that.
They have a tour.
That's so cool.
Yeah. All right. Farah is a staff member with Project Sleep, but also going to give input today. Tell us why, Farah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a idiopathic hypersomnia diagnosis, but a lot of narcolepsy overlap, and I'm sure our community knows very well the sort of gray areas and trying to figure out a diagnosis. But I've done quite a bit of traveling. I'd say probably one of my favorite places was Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I can't decide between those. And a place I would like to go, I really want to see Venice before it like just disappears. Assuming that's still on track before it sinks. So yeah, I'd say Venice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of good places. All right. And I'm Julie, and I live in Los Angeles. I have type 1 narcolepsy with cataplexy. And my favorite place I've been, I thought of the question to ask you guys, but I didn't think of an answer. Shoot. All right. I'll go with Paris. I just love Paris. I think Paris is just so magical. So we'll go with that. Somewhere I'd like to go. Well, so I am currently doing this thing around Los Angeles where I do these stair walks, and there's 42 stair walks that are in a book, and I am really close to finishing the book. So that's not, but after that, I think once I finish the book, I'd like to do a goal of like going to all the national parks in California or
Yes.
something and checking them all off. And there's just so much in California I haven't seen, which is really sad. Like I haven't been to Joshua Tree. Like
And
I know it's really bad. So I got to get out there in California more. So that would be my next goal, I think.
I'm surprised you didn't say you wanted to attend all the Grand Slams.
That too, actually. Lots of goals. Yeah. Yes. Two down. No, three down, one to go. Well, no. Okay. I was at Wimbledon, but I didn't get into the court. So I think that's still Wimbledon and French Open I still have to do.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're just so excited to get going here. So we have let me see if this pulls up the right. All right. So we're going to discuss today travel, and the way we tried to break it down, such an important complex topic, is to talk about before your trip, during your trip, and after your trip. Speaking of before the trip, I think we should start with medications. I think it's something that is something I wish I thought about much sooner before a trip than I have. And I know, now that we are doing this broadcast and preparing for this broadcast actually really prompted me to learn a lot as I was preparing for a trip to go to Singapore for World Sleep meeting. And uh, retrospectively, I realized I've basically kind of been breaking laws in other places. I just didn't know it, which is okay if you don't know it, I think. I mean, it's not okay. You can still get in trouble. But for me, I'm a rule follower. So once I knew that there were rules in certain countries about where you can bring your medication and where you can't, or applying for special exemptions, then I became, really concerned about this topic. And so for my Singapore trip, I actually, here, I'll show up my picture of Singapore here because it was so beautiful and so worth it. Here on the left, I'm in the rooftop infinity pool looking over the city, and it was so beautiful. But what's not pictured here is realizing about 10 days before I left that I needed that my medications were considered like dangerous drugs or some special designation with the Singapore government. And so I needed to um, apply online, which actually had a very simple application. It was very easy to actually complete. Um, and I did need to get my doctor to send a letter as well, or to have a letter with me. And so I was able, and I got the approval. They really said on the website you needed 2 weeks, but only had 10 days, so I just submitted it, and they did get back to me within 2 days. So I felt much better about that going. I was supposed to then, Farah and I were working on the slides for the broadcast, especially about medications, and she mentioned layovers. So actually, I have not been to Japan. I was supposed to go through Tokyo, but I learned that even if you lay over in a place for a few hours, technically the rules are still the same. So I would have had to apply to the Japanese government about the same exemptions. And by the time I knew this, it was just a few days before my trip. So I actually then switched to Hong Kong as my layover, then realized they had rules that were kind of similar. And I didn't really have time to do the applications. And then I decided to go direct to Singapore. So I ended up changing just so I could, feel okay about that. I know you guys have some experiences as well. Lauren, did you have one?
Yeah, so I feel like in terms of prescriptions and doctors' kind of notes, I have some things. Um, Definitely leading up to a trip. I can even think I just did it this morning. I always try to count how much medication I need because you never want to run out of medication while you're on a trip. So I actually just realized I'm leaving for a trip on Thursday. I'll be gone Thursday to Monday, but I run out of medication on a Saturday. So I did so now I'm kind of realizing, okay, I need to call my doctor's office, see if I can get, permission to have some, maybe some pills that are, given to me earlier, or hopefully they can fill them in a pharmacy where I am by Saturday. But definitely keeping your eye on kind of like your medication schedule because you never want to be without, especially if you're in an unfamiliar place. So, making sure you know kind of what your prescription refill status is. And then also, I definitely always make sure that I make a list when I'm getting ready to pack. And I always check off my medication as the last thing on my list. Like basically right before I'm walking out the door, that's the last thing I check off. And I make sure it's in my carry-on, not my check bag. Because you always just want to make sure, you have everything with you. You don't want to if your luggage gets lost, anything like that, you don't want to have to deal with that. So I always make sure it's in my carry-on. And so the pictures that are shown here is actually a family trip to Singapore. My cousin, or not Singapore, to Trinidad. Um, my cousin got married a few years ago, and I got to be a bridesmaid in the wedding. And so it was a great big family vacation. And leading up to it, I, was made aware that the medication that I was on was unfortunately a banned substance there. So I kind of went on the customs TSA website trying to figure out, what documentation I needed. And luckily it was pretty straightforward. I just needed, a doctor's note with a signature that stated that, I'm a person with narcolepsy and I need this medication, for quality of life and it's, necessary. Um, and then I also needed to have an actual prescription of the medication as well. So those were the two documentations that I needed. So I just made sure that they were in my carry-on along with my medication. And when I landed and went through customs, they just looked at the documentation, didn't really, give it too much, just kind of read that it was doctor's note, and I was able to kind of go on my way. So that was a good experience. But that's kind of my pre-travel rituals.
Yeah. All right. I think I unshared the slide so we can Farah, did you have some pre-trip packing and medication thoughts or?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely want to second what Lauren said. I've called the pharmacy too many times and been like, I need it tomorrow. So definitely spare yourself the stress, and plan for that in advance. I'd say in terms of like pre-travel, my main thing is making sure I have what I need to be comfortable for naps. So my kit is my neck pillow, earplugs, eye mask. I need them all the time. It's funny because sometimes when we do road trips, I put it all on, and one time someone said that I was in my nap mode because it's just like everything goes on. But I do think when you're traveling, sometimes you don't know exactly when you're going to catch a break. And so just having everything you need to sleep or nap as comfortably as you can. I like to make sure I pack those things with me in advance. Yeah.
Anna, any thoughts on this area?
Um, on like anything for like pre-travel?
Yeah, also I know you did go to Japan, and so you were able to bring your medication into Japan, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. So I did the thing of reading every Reddit thread that I possibly could about every single person's experience with every single type of medication possible. I wasn't able to bring, like, I knew Xanax and anything, Valium, anything like that. It was just a hard no go for that country. And so that was a little disappointing because I was trying to try that out to help me sleep on the plane. I can't sleep on planes, and that's unfortunate. And so I was able to take one on the way there, and then I couldn't bring any more. So that would have been really helpful just in the trip in general because it was a lot. But my modafinil, I was able to take, like Lauren, I got a doctor's note. I brought my prescription. I brought the bottle. I brought everything I just brought as much as possible. Um, I did not do the correct thing of applying through the website because I think ultimately I wasn't sure that it was necessary for one. It was kind of confusing, to be completely honest.
Kind of. It's super confusing. So confusing.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I was stopped by when I went through. It was actually like pre-customs. I want to say I was stopped at some point. They took my medications, and
In
then I'm
Japan?
in
In
Japan.
Japan? Wow.
Yeah, and then they took them and brought them back in a little room for a while, and then they brought them back and they said, "Okay, you're good to go." And that doesn't happen to everybody. Again, Reddit is not a source of information that we all should trust. They are not doctors, they are not lawmakers in whatever the country you're going, whatever. But it was evidence to me of like some people that happened to, some people it didn't happen to, and you really have to plan for the worst, I think, and
Yeah.
follow the rules.
Yeah. Well, I think that's so true though that the official government websites are quite confusing. I think I'm pretty good at this kind of stuff,
I
and
know.
medications even have different names, right? So the nighttime medication we take, right? I take is Xyrem's the brand label, sodium oxybate's the off label, but actually then some government websites I found one of the Asian countries I was looking at still went by the gamma hydrobox, like the GHB
Yeah, yeah,
language,
yeah.
word choice. So
Mm-hmm.
even trying to like, let's say you have this long document with all these names and you just search for the word sodium oxybate, it might not even show, but then I
Yeah,
don't know how I actually stumbled upon and said, oh, actually they have gamma, blah, blah, blah. So that's like a different word choice.
yeah.
But then even figuring out what to do is so I ended up on Reddit for at least for my daytime stimulant being Adderall. Um, I found the Reddit for ADHD medication and travel extremely helpful.
And yeah,
Extremely helpful, more than the government websites. But then the Xyrem there wasn't like the whole Reddit thread of everyone's experiences around the world to um reference. So that's why obviously we want to put together a toolkit on this topic for you guys. All right. So as far as anything else pre-trip, we have scheduling. I think there's Anna, you have some stuff about scheduling.
yeah. I think Farah and I both had things to talk about here in terms of like um, you planning realistically and thoughtfully. So something I didn't do. I'm coming to you humbly as a woman whose honeymoon was very ambitious, and sometimes we forget that we have narcolepsy, and I don't have any way to explain that other than that we're human beings. And I don't. When we were there, I was like, why did I do this to myself? Because I wanted to do these things, and I wanted to do them with my husband, and um, some stopgaps would have been helpful along the way with planning. But am I glad I did it? Yes. Would I done it differently? Yes. We changed cities in Japan like every 2 to 3 days, which includes, I just don't think I totally understood how unrealistic that is with at least for me with my narcolepsy in terms of you're packing up all your stuff, and we had a fair amount of luggage because we were gone for a total of 2 weeks. um, and it includes like shipping luggage to a different locate. There's a lot of like people often ship their luggage, but in Japan between different locations, um, and but then bringing all that luggage that you do have on a train and then to a bullet train, and then it was a lot of extra movement, a lot of extra logistics, a lot of extra energy. And um, I think that it would have really served me well to stay in a location for longer. The day when we finally got to Kyoto was the first day we were somewhere for like we were there for 3 nights. And that was when sort of finally felt a little bit settled. And that was almost halfway through the time that we were in Japan. So um, that's something that, yeah, maybe wasn't as
Yeah.
thoughtful and realistic as it could be in
Yeah.
the future. And we're going to do it differently next time.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, something I do, I often travel by myself, so it's a really different, thing than being with someone else too. But um uh when I need to go, but often I'm going to a conference or, there's something. And so I always try to leave like I call it like a buffer day or something. So get to the place and I never, never, ever plan to be a fully functioning, working human being the first day. Like I have to have at least one day to kind of adjust myself and allow now maybe I can, it's not like I'm just going to be in bed all day, right? But I know I need it because I want to be on my own schedule as far as when I feel tired and not feeling like I'm like, messing up other people's schedules or
Yeah.
or missing part of a conference or something. So I at least need one day when I get to a place to adjust. And I have done great things. I've gone to a museum, maybe I do a great morning and then by the afternoon I'm kind of losing it and I head back to the hotel early. So that's a tip from me that's really helped. Um, Far, did you do anything on scheduling or
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. So I had a very opposite experience to Anna's for our honeymoon, where we decided to do nothing. And there was like a little bit of guilt for me, because we were like, oh, we could have
where
gone and
were
done
you?
it. We went to Punta Cana.
Mm.
It was awesome. It was just really hot. So that was my only grievance. My husband loved it, but it was, I think we went 3 weeks after our wedding and we were just so exhausted. So I think one thing that I kind of learned through that experience is like when you travel for fun, like taking a little bit of time to think about like what is the purpose of your trip. And I know that, when you're traveling for fun, it doesn't necessarily like we don't necessarily think that way, but I think for us it was like the purpose was like we literally need to do nothing. And we were able to do that, I think, because we had a little bit of planning in advance. Because there were so many places we would have liked to have gone, but a lot of them would have been like a lot of being out and about, and I think we just needed to just totally, lie around and relax. And again, like there was that moment of like, oh, like we're here for whatever it was, I think 6 or 7 days. Like we could have done something else, but like looking back on it, it was like a really good decision.
Yeah.
So
Of
yeah,
course,
that's
everyone's trying to
something.
sell you the tours. They're like, take this tour, take that tour,
Well, the
right?
minute you walk into the airport, it's like, oh, did you schedule this? Did you schedule that? And we're like, no. And then you start to be like, well, should I have? And, we told ourselves we would play it by ear. And in the end, it was really just like sitting on the beach and just, it was really restorative, I think, as well. But we are planning kind of like an anniversary trip. And so now I'm like, okay, thinking again, like, is that the same purpose for this trip, or
Right.
do we want to go and explore? So yeah, I'd say that's kind of one principle that I try to keep in mind now. Um, yeah, and I'll just say the other thing about scheduling. I know we have a picture in the slides there. Um, so we recently went to Chicago, and there were a whole bunch of things to do there. I'd never been to Chicago, but my husband has family in Chicago, so he's been a million times, and he planned out this whole day of things that we would go check out. And while we were there, one of our cousins mentioned that there was a Harry Potter pop-up shop. And so that just had to take priority. Like there was just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so, coming back to what Anna was talking about, when, you try to plan thoughtfully and realistically, I think it's like planning for that and also leaving again that flexibility to say, okay, there's something that I didn't anticipate. I really want to do it. Where do I adjust elsewhere to maintain, energy levels and actually being able to enjoy it? And it was so well worth it. Yeah.
I'm guessing you're a Harry Potter nerd.
I mean, I've got a bit of a shrine of like all my books and my, collector's edition DVD and my Harry Potter Lego because I have a bunch of that. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Um,
As
the only
far
other
as
thing that I would really quickly add for pre-trip, just in terms of lodging, because I'm a really, I don't know if this is the same case for everyone. I'm just a really big stickler, and I associate it with narcolepsy. Also, might be anxiety, but I really, really do like a very intense search of the places that we're considering to stay, whether it be an Airbnb or a hotel. Um, in terms of, I go to TripAdvisor, Yelp, Google reviews, and I search the same terms every time: sleep, noise, smoke, sound, smell. Because if my sleep is disrupted, the whole trip is pretty, some people can handle that and it doesn't alter their whole trip. But I know for myself with my narcolepsy, that ain't the case. And so that often goes great. In Japan, we ended up, I don't know, I felt scammed. I went to a hotel, all the reviews must have been lies, and we had to like find another place to stay at like 7 p.m. on a Friday night in Tokyo. But if you have certain credit cards, your credit card company can help you. Just something I didn't know. But anyway, just something if you also are in a similar boat and sensitive to your sleep environment, which I imagine a lot of us are, that's just a great tip.
yeah, smells. I'm gonna do smells. I hate smells. Like I don't know if it's
The
not maybe
smell,
narcolepsy, but just yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and smoke. Ooh, okay. It's a great tip. Anything else about lodging and accommodations?
Yeah, I would say one thing I've really tried to do is ask about early check-ins and late checkouts.
Yes.
Because when you're traveling and you like I've had this experience more than once before I really started to think about it, where like you travel, it's exhausting, you get there and you're like, oh, now I have to wait 4 hours to check in, and all I want to do is like take a shower and a nap. Like that's it. So yeah, that's something I've, really tried to stay on top of is like asking for early check-in and a lot of the time late checkout just so that it's not like a mad rush to, get the day going and pack up and all that.
You can nap then, hopefully,
Yes.
at the hotel. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Flights, planning for flights.
Mm. All these flights are delayed or canceled. I have had everyone I know, including myself, has had a rough time this summer. I don't know if other people have experienced that here. Um, the flights are not as reliable as they. I would say expect a delay or cancellation. I think it's just wise. And if you get trapped in an airport, the food closes at like 10 p.m. at the latest. You don't want to be caught exhausted, sleepy, and without food, especially if you need to uh, if anybody has certain medications they need to take food with or whatnot, or you need to eat at a certain time so that you can take your medication later. Um, so packing, even if you think you might be taking a flight where you're not going to sleep on it because of the time of day or something, packing the stuff that you might need to sleep on an airplane because you don't know that that flight is going to be changed or not. If you can, packing extra medication in case you have to stay an extra day because your flight was canceled. Things like this. Again, with planning for every, not that we need to live in a world where we're planning for the worst, but I do think that it can be practical in some cases.
Yeah, and cheaper. Having snacks. I did that for Singapore. I brought my own snacks on the plane. And I promised myself I wouldn't buy any food in the airport on my, and I didn't, and I'm so proud of myself. Don't worry, I spent money on lots of other stuff, but I did not buy snacks in the LAX on my way in. I was like, I have Trader Joe's. I have Trader Joe's in my bag. So, you had something about upgrading to business class, Anna. Please,
Oh my God.
please do tell.
Well, no, this is not accessible to most people, including myself. So it's like a weird thing to say. But again, we were flying through Japan. It was a 12-hour flight. I know I can't sleep on airplanes, and yet we really gambled with business class. We thought we could get upgraded by using points. We did a lot of research, and then we show up, and that wasn't the case. And it really did not set me up well for the rest of the trip. Um,
Because you thought you were getting business class maybe, and then you didn't. Is that what you're saying?
yeah. I thought that I was going to be able to lie down and hopefully sleep a little. And that's on me for gambling with that. I just, not that if we had thought and maybe budgeted either our credit card points or something within our actual budget to prioritize that, knowing what I know now, knowing how much it affected me to have that 12 hours in which I mean, I maybe slept a half an hour, maybe. Um, and when I mean, it took days for me to sort of calm down and regulate. And it wasn't very, I love my honeymoon. I think I can now think about it very fondly, but at the time it was really, honestly, it really screwed me up. So no, I'm taking that into consideration of maybe flying somewhere closer because I can't really afford a business class ticket right now. So maybe not flying somewhere for 12 hours or longer, maybe. I think the longer the flight, the more that might be necessary for me to be able to lie down flat. But again, that's kind of a luxury, unfortunately, with these airlines. So just something, leave as little to chance as possible, I think might be helpful with chronic conditions in general.
Yeah. Lauren, thinking about medication and naps?
Yeah, so when I'm kind of looking to book my flight, I definitely try and look at the timing and consider my medication and nap schedule, kind of typically how that is, and see how that kind of correlates to the flights. I know, similar to what Anna said, like nothing's ever on time, so it's kind of all, doesn't really matter anyway. But in the case that everything, is kind of running on time, I do like to, try to, like for me personally, like I don't personally like to take red eyes if I'm traveling solo. Just because my nighttime medication knocks me out for an extended period of hours that doesn't always make me feel safe and comfortable if I'm traveling alone solo. So I prefer to not take red eyes. So that's something that like for me is like a personal decision that I make. So maybe look for, more of like a daytime flight schedule. Also, like I try to avoid like an early morning flight because
Oh,
that's really difficult to wake up for and sets me up for failure. And I'll always miss the flight. And it's just a waste of money, a waste of everything. So I definitely try to be realistic, even if I'm traveling with a group of friends. Like if they're determined to take the first flight out in the morning, I'll just have to say I'll meet you there. Like I have to do what's best for me and my body. And I've kind of, gotten familiar enough to kind of understand my schedule and my own needs. So I definitely encourage everyone to kind of not break up your schedule too much.
I think it's like so powerful. It's basically like things that are kind of ingrained in us, like, oh, take the early flight because it's cheapest, or oh, don't waste a day traveling, these kind of things. And then actually with the narcolepsy mindset that actually like maybe is actually better to take the whole day to travel East Coast for me. It's so frustrating to look at it and you go, oh my God, I'm gonna leave at 8 a.m. here and I'll get there and it'll be like 6 p.m. and you've wasted the whole day as opposed to a red eye. But learning the hard way for me that like that is better. Take the day, and maybe think I'm going to read a book on the plane or do some work or whatever makes me feel productive. But that the different mindset of all those other voices and what we kind of think about as good travel, good travel with narcolepsy is different, maybe. Yeah. A little bit about traveling for work, Farah.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and I have a picture as well in our slides that I can share. So I've done a lot of traveling for work. I used to be a university recruitment officer. So I have a picture there on the left. That is a really cute version of our mascot, Mac the Marauder. And I would try to, wherever I went, I would try to, grab a picture with Mac. And
Project Sleep
so
really needs a mascot, is what this reminds me of. We need a
that's it.
mascot.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's going on the
Okay,
meeting
good.
agenda for next week.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
cute.
yeah, and it was a fun way to kind of capture moments on the road. So for me, a lot of that traveling was on the road. But I think some of the takeaways for me were like when it came to hotels and trying to find places that were close to wherever I needed to be for work. I've also traveled quite a bit for conferences and research and things like that, and um, for me, the difference is night and day between staying in the hotel where the conference is happening versus down the street, even though sometimes it's like a really short walk. I've, been fortunate that way. But between sessions, being able to just take naps, if you are staying at a hotel, especially with conference days, those are packed. Sometimes I had like hotel nap buddies who were very generous and were like, hey, if you need to take a nap, here's my room, just let me know. So that was a really helpful thing as well while traveling for work. I'd say the other thing is letting colleagues know what your needs are. And this goes for, not just colleagues or work, but if you're traveling with people, whether that's just, one person or a whole family, but making sure that the people around you know, if you have any times of day where you tend to struggle a bit more, or, in my case, it was like, okay, we're traveling some distance to get to an event. I'm going to take a nap. Can you make sure that you call me 10 minutes prior so that I have enough time to kind of, wake up and feel ready to actually do my job once I get there? Yeah, I'd say those were some of the key things for me. Yeah.
Um, any other thoughts on that before anyone else traveling for work? I agree, hotel close to the venue. Key because venues are huge at conferences too. So like you could walk a mile just to leave a venue.
Yeah. Actually, that's
That's
true. So much of the walking is just literally in that conference center that by the time you actually get out, you're like, oh, I
yeah,
have to
you
go
figure out
back.
how to get out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Should we check in with the chat and hear what people have to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So much awesome engagement in the chat. Lots of people chiming in from all over the world and saying Happy World Narcolepsy Day. We've got people in Wisconsin, Florida, Connecticut, Finland, Nashville, Illinois, Alberta, Canada. Yeah, lots of people jumping in. We had some good discussion about medication, and planning for those trips as well. We did get a question from Stephanie asking if anyone had experience staying in hostels. Stephanie mentioned, tending to opt for hotels because of safety concerns with nighttime meds, but of course, hostels tend to be a lot more budget friendly. So Dee chimed in with some thoughts, but I don't know if anyone else has, any experience or wants to speak to that.
I personally haven't done hostels, but I have done like a fair amount of Airbnbs and also group trips.
Mhm.
And one thing that I actually am thinking about getting that I haven't purchased for myself yet, but was like a travel safe for my medications. Like in
Oh,
most hotels, there's normally like a safe that you can, store your medication, passport, valuables in. But I think for like maybe a hostel situation, I think like a travel safe could be a great you know, useful tool just to kind of make sure that as you're sharing community space with people, you feel like you're protected.
That's awesome.
I'd never heard of that before. That's
Yeah, I've stayed in a hostel. It was pre-diagnosis, like a year before. It was in Paris. Some hostels are some hostels do have like a separate room. We got like I was traveling with my friend and we got like a room with a bunk bed and he stayed on the top and I stayed on the bottom and we were the only people in that room. So I guess those do exist, and of course we had to like share a restroom with other people, and I guess it depends on your yeah if that's something you're used to and your game to do that, and you want to save some money. I think it could be a good option. Again, I would read reviews. Yeah, but I think Lauren's idea could make that feel a lot safer in terms of medication.
I have a lot of hallucinations in hotels. I think it's because of new space and being asleep in a new space. So I don't know that I could at this point in my life do that. I have looked
I
at some.
did have a hallucination in that bunk bed, and it was pretty. Yeah.
Oh, so it's often it's like the staff is trying to get into the room to like clean it or something, or like to drop off a chocolate. I wish they actually would. They don't seem to as much as, but I'm like thinking that they're trying to get in to do something with the room, and then it's like they're knocking on the door over and over. Maybe they do sometimes. I really don't know. But I don't know that I could do a hostel at this point. I've looked at them in Melbourne, Australia, because they're really close to the Australian Open, and it's so much cheaper. But yeah, I mean that's good about Anna's thought around reviews. Reviews, read all the reviews and see what other people are saying as well.
Mm.
Loud, rowdy, probably not a good idea. Any other questions for us?
Well, we got a suggestion that our mascot should be a sloth.
A sloth. Well, Scrappy might have something to say about that. I don't
Oh,
know.
that's a good point. Scrappy
Yeah.
would make an excellent.
I do have an idea about doing an animated star, like making a star, like a cartoon star.
Yes.
I know it's Carl's Jr., I believe, the
Yeah.
restaurant
Yes.
chain also has a star. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll
That's
see.
the idea so far.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
okay.
just a little bit of conversation around also like one consideration is not just the safety of the medication, but also, being worried about being incapacitated with nighttime meds and, just the safety around um, the person as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think Anna, what you mentioned, like maybe there are places where
Yeah, I'm
accommodations are a little
remembering I
different.
also did that in Costa Rica.
Oh,
My boyfriend at the time and we had like a separate room. So I don't know. I guess it depends on the hostel. And of course, those are more expensive than um, a room where you're in a community setting, like with multiple people. But I think obviously we did it both times because it was still cheaper than a hotel.
Yeah.
I think something that is maybe we've touched on a little bit here is that it can sometimes feel like it's more expensive to travel with narcolepsy, and that sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't, yeah.
I think though, Anna, what you said earlier about kind of thinking about what the priorities are and, sort of like budgeting in advance. Because, yeah, it's true. Unfortunately, there are certain things that are just, not necessarily workarounds, but like you got to do what you got to do to be well. But then, giving some thought to like, okay, what are the things that are really important to me on that trip and trying to sort of budget for that.
Yeah.
I think there are definitely a lot of trade-offs, like both like financially and also just even like you're saying about maybe not switching locations as much, that people you go to a place and you want to see so much, but making choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and it can also, yeah, we sort of accidentally on the way back from our honeymoon, we we spent 11 days in Japan and then we did 3 nights in Hawaii on the way back, and it sort of part of it was to break up the jet lag. Because I've heard, and Julie just experienced this, the jet lag from Asian countries to the West Coast can be really intense, I guess. I've read and then now I've heard from Julie. And it wasn't as bad because I got to do part of it. I got to break it up so it wasn't all at once. And look, I would much rather crash in Hawaii than I would in my apartment in Los Angeles. But obviously, that incurred some extra costs, but it was worth it for us.
Yeah. All right. During the trip, I guess, yeah, I mean, I think I don't I guess the I wanted to mention the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower lanyard, which is really nice. It's really recognized increasingly in airports around the world. I think it started in the UK, but it's a nice symbol. And now I've seen other people wearing them, and you see some billboards sometimes around airports promoting the program. And so it's a lanyard. I have it, but I don't have it in front of me. And you can wear it, and then it's supposed to be that the TSA people and the airport people kind of just know that means that you might need some extra time or some extra help. And I think that's just a nice symbol if you're feeling uncertain about, the airport experience. It's just a symbol that let's hope that people will treat with a little bit more patience and kindness in the journey. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you don't have to go through TSA, or that they still might look at your medication more carefully. But maybe if you are walking up, I don't know, if you're walking up to the counter to ask for like a pre-board or something, that maybe that symbol, the staff would just maybe not be as, uncertain about helping you, because it's literally the symbol is of invisible condition. So it's saying I have an invisible disability. So I don't know that I have one, but I don't know. I think I have worn it before. But I don't have really I don't have any stories about, something different happening or something, from wearing it. But it's a really great program. Lauren, you had some about pre-board.
Yeah, so I do travel like alone most of the time, and I've had unfortunate instances, mostly pre-diagnosis, of falling asleep at the gate and missing my flight. So, learning from that experience, I do sometimes alert the gate agent when I arrive at the gate. And I just say, like, hi, I'm on this flight. I have a medical disability and I may doze off while waiting for the flight to board. Um, when the flight starts to board, would you mind, tapping me and, making sure that I'm aware that the flight's boarding? I've never, had any issues, when I've said that. They've, always, been, happy to do that. And I also try to take advantage of the pre-boarding. They, offer pre-boarding for people that need extra time. And I often take advantage of that, especially because for me personally, my cataplexy is mostly triggered by kind of like panicked nerves. So I feel like being in like a crowded, you know, runway lane, trying to, get your bag in the overhead and trying to deal with, other people's space and your space. It's always hot. And that's just like a recipe for me to have cataplexy. So I feel like the pre-board, you can get your bag in the overhead without feeling rushed and without, causing a disruption if, anything does go awry. But definitely making the gate agents aware, and then listening out for the pre-board call is, kind of my go-to when traveling.
Yeah, that's really a good idea. I don't know what could possibly be annoying about someone like hitting you with their backpack as they try to get by you. What do you mean? Annoyance on a plane? Never heard of it. Never heard of it. Uh, yeah, Farah, you had something too about napping in the airport.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, my nap kit comes with me, and I have done a lot of napping in public places, also like while traveling for work, and a lot of that was solo travel. And so just in terms of safety, I think a couple of tips. For one, I try to secure my belongings in a way that like they're facing me, they're close to me. Obviously most valuable things are like on my person. I'll usually put like my backpack loop through or put my leg through a backpack loop, or, like try to somehow attach it to myself. So that again, it's, just no risk of someone, walking off with it. Carry-ons make for really nice footrests sometimes as well. I've done that a lot when I not exactly the most comfortable seating in the airport sometimes. So that's one thing. But yeah, securing belongings and then also just actual, like your own safety. I generally have tried to choose places that are reasonably busy, well lit, enough going on that if, something strange were to happen, like people are there to notice. So yeah, just being strategic about that. Sometimes it's hard, obviously, if you're kind of like, I need to nap now, and options might be limited. So, you do the best that you can. I saw a comment too about like napping in hotel lobbies when we were talking about, early check-in and stuff. So, sometimes there's some good spots there if you're waiting. Um,
Yes, or if the
Lounges, things like
hotel
that.
has a pool with like lounge chairs,
Oh, okay.
like I have fully fallen. I've been like, all right, I can't check in for 3 hours. I'll just be by the pool sleeping. Yeah.
Yeah.
A great idea. I mean, one of the things I do love about airports, I think, and airplanes is some of the only socially acceptable spaces to be sleeping. Like lots of people actually are often like on the floor sleeping, like taking more dramatic sleeping positions, and I feel comfortable maybe, but I do think it's nice. I know, and everyone can have their own experience, but I don't like that I have to fall asleep often as I'm waiting for the plane to board. I wish I could just wait for get on the plane to fall asleep, but and I do the same thing. I like wrap my purse around my arm, sort of. But I don't think you're probably the only one sleeping. So it's also like not like like there's a it's an environment where I don't think it necessarily stands out that we are like maybe I don't know if it's better that many people are vulnerable and sleeping in an airport, but
There's
uh
also, sorry, Julie, go ahead.
no.
I was just gonna say, something I came across was nap rooms and nap pods at airports. Okay, yeah, so yeah, they're like, I mean, they're still picking up, but I think there are some in the States and certain places around the world where it's like a little pod and you can like kind of rent the space, and sometimes it's like a really comfortable like chair that reclines or whatever, but I haven't personally seen one, but I like the idea of it. Because I have the same struggle.
Massage chairs. There's a lot of
Yeah.
massage chairs now too. So,
Yep.
and I've seen people fall asleep in those, which is, makes sense. There's a lot of nursing pods. I haven't actually tried to go into one to use it for sleep, but yeah. All right, we still have a lot to cover and we're kind of running out of time. So, traveling with others versus traveling solo. Um, Very important topic. Lauren, did you have something about sharing rooms and beds?
Oof.
Yeah, quickly. I guess kind of to piggyback on my point earlier about just kind of making sure when you travel, you do what's best for you, not necessarily what the entire group is trying to do. I would say I've done a few, of those bachelorette party trips. And, I've definitely had to, express that I would prefer to have my own room. If I am sharing a room with someone, I need to have a very frank conversation with them, kind of about what my sleeping and nap needs are to make sure that we're on the same page and I'm not disrupting them, they aren't disrupting me. But typically I do prefer to not share a room on a group trip so I can make sure that I can kind of have control of the situation. But if there does need to, for whatever reason, you do end up kind of buddying up with someone, I feel like, depending on what your alarm schedule is for your medication, like all of that kind of needs to be laid out beforehand so they can opt in and you can also opt in.
Yes.
I'll chime in real quick on that because I had a kind of like a wonderful experience where we went for like a religious pilgrimage, my family and I, and one of the hotels that we went to, like it was the four of us, but there were four single beds, and like I'd never seen that before. It made a lot of sense in hindsight because with a pilgrimage like this, like you're up and at it at all different times of the day, people are coming and going, and I was like, wow, like. I can just do my own thing and focus on, my daily activities and then come back and not have my sister pushing up against. Like it was wonderful. So yeah, sometimes like those hotel rooms with like the two queen beds, I used to use it just for clothes, but now I'm like, oh yeah, sometimes you just want to sleep really still and yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of, I've done a lot of traveling by myself, but it's mostly for, visiting family. In terms of like traveling with others for enjoyment, it's mostly my husband, I guess. But some lessons that I found, um, again, things I might do differently next time, is to, and I fully got this from Kayla Douglas's blog. I saw this ahead of time and I was like, that's so obvious. I don't think I need to talk about that with him ahead of time. Wrong. It wasn't. And I forgot about it. She had this great thing of like talking ahead of time to be like, hey, I might need to take a nap. Sorry, I will need to take a nap, obviously. There are some times that it might be like an unscheduled one and you don't need to rest at that time. And I'm okay with you going off and doing something by yourself and making a list ahead of time of what, for me, I definitely want to do so that he doesn't go off and do it without me. Anything that's not on that list, at least for us, I'm like, fair game, go enjoy doing that. And it's so that both he knows he can and he knows that I'm okay with it. And I wish we had done that a little bit more. And it's something that we're really excited about, a concept to bring forward. But I think it's so hard to employ that in the moment without having like just separate from the trip, separate from feeling sleepy, separate from feeling energized and excited, which is also an issue that I have of like adrenaline and wanting to do things. So having that talk beforehand and also communicating with, even if you are visiting family, especially if you lived with them pre-diagnosis or pre lots of symptoms, being like, hey, this is what I'm like when I'm traveling. I'm not going to be X, Y, and Z as you expect, especially in the first day or two after arriving. It doesn't mean that I don't love you. It doesn't mean that I'm lazy. It doesn't mean that I don't want to help around the house, but etc.
Yeah, such an important point. Communicating before the things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, the thing I wanted to mention about traveling solo, I kind of feel bummed about it sometimes because I think there's, especially as a woman, I feel like there's certain things like, okay, I went to Utah. Like I'm probably not going to go off hiking by myself, like in a mountain. But I found a lot of great tours through TripAdvisor. And I just found to kind of discover this last couple of years where, and I'm a big fan right now of a half day morning tour. It starts early, but then actually it's kind of done by noon or one. And then I can, rest in the afternoon. And I found that's really empowering to be able to get to do things that I might not have done. And then you're in a small group of like 4 or 6 people. And the driver and I've really been able to do some really cool things, through like a structured tour. Um, I know, Anna, we've talked about tours because there are like long day bus tours too, where they're like, drop off and like there can be some tours where it's like really super busy. I did one of those in Taiwan with my family and it was kind of long days, but I could like nap in the van rides in between spots. So I didn't mind that too much. But my new sweet spot is the half day tours. And I've done those in Utah and Hawaii and Nevada. So just wanted to mention that.
I co-signed the structured tours thing, because of the concept of like rest is more than just napping. This is another thing that I've learned recently. And oh yes, thank you for putting a photo. So the photo on the left is we're on a boat. It was like an hour and a half. It was so extraordinarily relaxing. It was like this, they've been doing this route for over 1,000 years type of thing. And it was, we didn't really talk much during, and we had to take a train, like a scenic outlook train to get there. And then we had the boat. And it was actually, like, thinking back on it, quite a long day. And but we planned it for the latest we possibly could in the day so that I would have time to nap. And it still meant like a 10:30 a.m. nap, which is way earlier than I usually do. But I did get some rest in. And then all of the activities were seated. All of the activities were calm. They were relaxing, but we still got to do a lot and see a lot. And I was so energized by it. This was the first day that I felt, quote unquote, normal, because we actually had a structured set of activities that can even look like a lunch reservation in the middle of the day. It can look like taking a walking tour or a class. Like, it doesn't have to be seated, but I find for me like that might be more restorative. It's an activity that's seated, but that can look like so many different things. It doesn't have to just be a lunch reservation or something. It can be like going on an adventure like this. And it's one of my favorite memories from the
Well,
trip.
I also think a lot of the tours I looked at are, they will say like good for people, older folks and stuff. That you get a sense of like something that's not going to be like too adventure, at least because here's my, I gotta show my picture from Utah on the right. This was a tour where like old people could do it too, right? So because
Yeah.
they had you on a little tram. So you weren't going to be like, like mountain climbing or rock climbing. It was something safe for a large group of people, which made me feel like, okay, that's like going to be easy enough for me too.
And that being said, we've also gone ziplining, and it was like a shortish tour, and it was at a time of day where I could nap, and that was also great.
Yeah. um okay. We have kind of talked about, you had something about pacing plan, Anna.
Okay, yeah. So this is uh, fully stolen from the USC occupational therapy program. Shout out to my occupational therapist, Anna, actually, for sharing this with me for migraines. It is something that I do to help, kind of like Lauren was saying, like she always makes a list to pack and really prepare for her trips. It's 3 columns on a sheet of paper. I can honestly just, I have one that I did recently for a trip. Uh, it's just 3 columns like that, before, during, and after. And the before could be something like a packing list. It could be things like information gathering, like the TripAdvisor reviews, things like that. It could be the communication with whomever you're traveling with. For me, it's also practicing what you might say in advance in times when you're like really excited and adrenaline filled of like, I am going to take a nap now because it will, then I will be able to enjoy the other activities later that we have planned. So I would actually probably write that out in the during column, like remember, like reminders like that, reminders to like drink water, eat things, whatnot, communicate. And then in the after, we sort of talked about this like buffering time before, but also buffering time after, to be like the next however many days you need. It are all recovery days. Like, don't plan a lot of things in these days. And I know we have some other top points about after time, but if you can call in help to somebody to help you unpack, you can be like afterwards, have meals in the fridge. Like, remember, we made a lot of meals and they're in the freezer so we don't have to cook. And that would also be something that I would have put in the before column, make those meals. So it's just something to force you to think about all the different steps and sort of gather your thoughts. And I think it's helpful.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I wish I had thought about getting some frozen meals from Trader Joe's in my freezer when I came back from Singapore. 'Cause I think I came back to a very empty fridge, and it did take me a day to get to the grocery store, and then it was the main activity that day. That's all. That was like the whole Saturday. It was just like all I will do today is get to the grocery store
Mm-hmm.
because I need to eat. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but anything more than oatmeal or whatever I had. Um, yeah, I think, is there anything else as about the after trip, Lauren, Farah, coming
Um,
back?
yeah, I feel like just kind of pacing yourself and like kind of easing back into your, day to day, I think is important, not, expecting that, the travel isn't gonna completely, wipe you out, because most likely it does. So just kind of anticipating that and giving yourself grace, and also communicating with the people in your life that, this is what you're going through.
Yeah. It looks like we have a question about managing jet lag. In general, I like to say that I find narcolepsy, with at least for me, with my medications, and also my sleepiness, is that I feel sometimes that I have an almost easier time than other people, because I've like when I get to Australia, for example, and I arrive at like 6 p.m. there, I don't know what time it's my body, but it's like, oh, it's nighttime here. Oh, it's time to go to bed. Oh, okay. And I take my nighttime medication, and I think that really does. And then I wake up in the morning and I take a stimulant. And I think that does help. I mean, it doesn't change jet lag, it doesn't change that I'm still a plant that needs light at a certain time and can't really transfer over. But I I find also my relationship to sleepiness may be a little bit different than other people, which is I'm kind of used to it in a way. I'm I'm not so shocked. Whereas other people seem kind of shocked when they really get tired very quickly, um, in the middle of a day or something. So I guess I haven't found it something that has held me back from traveling. I love traveling so much, and but I do have that buffer day when I get somewhere, because if I wasn't able to take medications well on a flight, or even if I did, that first day I just feel off. That's not necessarily, I mean, it's partly about jet lag, but it's also about the change of my medications, or maybe not having had doses at right time. So that's how I kind of manage, is that first day there, I just need to have a buffer. But anyone else have anything on jet lag? I know there are some cool apps. There's one that you can at least do once for free. I forget what it's called. We'll put it in the toolkit, where they do tips for you around like put on sunglasses, don't go out after this time, or
Yeah.
different things like that, which is
We
really
used that,
cool.
and it was like, you should nap during this time on the plane and things like that. I will say, I found as a person with narcolepsy, a lot of it irrelevant to me. I'm like, I'll nap when I need to nap. I don't have a choice. But my husband found it very helpful.
Anything else on jet lag?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
I mean,
like
just
you, like,
sitting.
I feel like I haven't really experienced it that much. I feel like normally I just kind of stay on my medication schedule depending on what time zone I'm in, and kind of adjust it to that. And I mean, kind of regardless, I'm going to experience sleepiness. So I
Yeah.
just continue to
I,
anticipate that.
yeah, I kind of agree with you both. I can't take the nighttime medication, so I don't really have that tool. So I did definitely experience it in Japan, and then, like I said, a little bit in Hawaii. But yeah, coming back with the like tiredness, I was like, this is normal for me. But going to Japan, I did find myself like waking up in the middle of the night starving, and like that I know is jet lag. But I don't think that it was any different actually than my husband's, to be totally honest, because again, we're sort of that. I think the tiredness, I was like, yeah, expected, but it was like, I'm hungry. That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, anything else?
um,
Anna, I know you had a really great point to drive us home.
Yes. Well, first of all, I know I said earlier, traveling with narcolepsy can be really expensive, and that stinks. However, I don't want to leave it on a negative thought of that. It also gives you the opportunity to be more creative, and I think everybody's touched on that. Julie wouldn't have found those tours otherwise, like things like that. Like it gives you the opportunity to find some new experiences that I think other people wouldn't, and you maybe wouldn't. So I think that's cool. Also, just because you have narcolepsy doesn't mean that you can't have fun when you're traveling or on vacation. But just because you're on vacation doesn't mean that you don't have narcolepsy. And I think that's the biggest thing, that I tend to remember the former and not the latter. And I get really excited and my adrenaline goes and I forget to honor the buffer day. of when I arrive, and then I overdo it. And so I think it's just important to remember that you contain multitudes. You're a person with narcolepsy, but you're also a person who has a bunch of interests and wants to go rock climbing and also needs to sit down.
Perfectly said. So we did have some more slides here, but we will put all this in the toolkit, especially regarding medications. So we had some nice, really pretty slides here about this, but we've kind of gone through some of this stuff, but just look to the toolkit because we'll have lots of great information in there. And we even, examples of different rules like the UK versus Japan, and some of how different different countries are. Every country is different. Singapore is different than Hong Kong is different than Tokyo or, Japan. Like they're just all really different. Of course, the great organizations, and there's organizations around the world. These are just the ones in the US. And some additional resources that we've mentioned. We will put a doctor's letter template in the toolkit as well if your doctor is not really sure what they should write. And a reminder, of course, any questions, call the helpline. We want to hear from you. And just a huge thank you to everyone for participating in today's discussion. We will have a toolkit thanks to our great discussion with you today coming in the future on this topic. And I just, of course, want to wish everyone an extremely restful and joyful and wakeful World Narcolepsy Day 2025. And with that, I think I'll say thank you and have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.